Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of my favorite Marvel projects I think ever, and I actually didn't see the first one in theaters. When the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie came out in 2018, I was like, I don't care. Everything about the movie is absolutely insane, and the way that they incorporated every single piece of Spider-Man's spider-ness that anyone has ever made, whether it's a fan, a director, a producer, an actor, a writer, some random Discord mod. It's like this movie is purely fan service, but it's not one of those fan service situations where it's like, oh, this is all fan service. The movie follows Haley Steinfeld as Ghost Spider, Shameik Moore as Miles Morales, Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara, Danielle Kaluuya as Spider-Punk,
Daniel, not Danielle,
Karan Soni as Spider-Man, Jason Schwartzman as Spot, Issa Rae as Spider-Woman, and Jake Johnson as Spider-Man in a 2-hour and 20-minute animated feature film. This movie is a sequel to the 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie that everybody is still freaking out about to this day. And this movie is honestly the most beautiful thing in the world. This movie mixes all of my favorite things about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and all of my favorite things about just Spider-Man in general and puts them together into probably one of the best animated movies that will ever exist. The connection between Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy that was made in the first movie is seriously expounded upon in this movie, and everything is just done so well that it was freaky. I had to go pee so bad in the last hour of the movie. I have never held having to go to the bathroom for so long in my entire life. The movie is chock full of so much that is so good, with references to other Spider-Man movies, references to things that are in the comics, that are in TV shows, references that I didn't even know that they could legally reference. References to the first movie, references to the next movie, characters that I absolutely loved. This movie is so funny for no reason. Like, this movie is flipping ridiculous. This isn't really spoiling, because if you look up Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse cast, it tells you, so I'm just gonna start talking about stuff now. And what I'm about to say is specifically about, like, my favorite character of the movie. Andy Samberg plays Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider, and he is so freaking funny. I loved him. Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Spider-Man out there. And Andy Samberg is probably one of my favorite actors out there. And the combination of Andy Samberg's just complete stupidity and Ben Reilly's absolute Giga Chad Super Kruger.
Do you really want to know?
I'll tell you.
At any moment, some taller than you, funny, intelligent, nice, perfect guy is just gonna walk through that door? I mean...
Sorry, I can't talk right now. Thinking about my past.
Awesomeness, the combination of those two things made him so funny. And then Danielle Kaluuya as Spider-Punk was so funny too. All of these characters were so well written and so well planned out, and the chemistry between all of them was so convincing that I was watching this movie trying to figure out which spider person I was going to adopt their personality, because that's something that people do, you know. Basically, what this movie is Miles Morales has been Spider-Man for about a year now. Now that he's getting comfortable with being Spider-Man and he's growing in his skills and the way that he's able to just be Spider-Man in general, he's getting more confident, and he finally thinks that he's figured out who he is. And while Miles Morales was, you know, growing and finding himself, Gwen Stacy was on her Earth dealing with the fact that her father, number one, doesn't know her identity, and number two, still thinks that Ghost Spider was the one that killed Peter Parker. And the way that they meld those two basically completely different storylines together and then use that to grow upon the story is so freaking awesome. The main villain is the Spot, and the Spot is played by Jason Schwartzman. The Spot's superpowers is basically he is this scientist that, you know, exploded in some kind of explosion scientist situation like all the other villains ever. And what it did to him was it made him appear as like a white and black Dalmatian, but all of the black spots are little portals into other dimensions or other places of the area that the Spot is in at the time. And in the beginning of the movie, Miles Morales is like, you're such a weak villain. I can totally defeat you. And that is what makes the Spot have his main villain arc, was because he was just a guy that was a scientist and now is stuck in this teleportation freak guy body and now has to figure out what he's gonna do with the rest of his life since he can't go back to being a scientist. But when Miles disrespects him and says, oh, I got you, you're just the villain of the week, the Spot decides that he's going to prove Miles wrong, and that is when the story really starts picking up. Is the Spot is trying to figure out a way to max out his powers so that he can prove to Miles Morales that he's not just the villain of the week and he is actually his arch nemesis. And honestly, I was not expecting the Spot to be the main villain. That came completely out of left field because the Spot seemed like just one of those comedic villain moments in the movie when they put it into the trailer. So the fact that he's the main villain was absolutely awesome. Before I really get into spoilers, because I have spoiled a little bit, but it's not like I've spoiled the most important parts of the entire thing, I want to say straight off the bat that if you're watching this video while Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is still in theaters, you should definitely go watch it if you can afford it or have the time or whatever, because it's so good. And I didn't get to see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in theaters, and it's one of my main regrets in life, to be completely honest, because I love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I watch it all the time. So seeing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in theaters was a big moment for me because I missed the first one. But yeah, I have to rate this movie like a 10 out of 10. I am not kidding. This movie is so good. Now, getting into more spoiler kind of stuff, I'm gonna basically pick up where I left off before I decided to spoil, but basically, Spot learns that his holes in his body are not just holes that teleport things in his, like, vicinity to a different part of his vicinity, and realizes that they're actually multiversal portals and multi-dimensional portals that he can use to go anywhere in the multiverse. And because of this, he starts testing it out, and he goes to a comic world. He goes to the live action Venom world, guys. He goes to the shopkeeper lady that's like tight with Venom. They have a full-on conversation. It was freaking awesome. And Spot also teleports into a Lego world, which, fun fact, guys, the Lego world was created by this guy named Lego Me / the OG, which is this kid, this 14-year-old kid that animated a Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but in Lego form, official trailer when the trailer came out. And the producers of the movie were so impressed that they actually decided to include him in the movie as the main Lego animator for the movie, which is so flipping cool. So the Spot goes into this guy's Lego world, and then the Spot goes into all these other places, and then is like, holy cow, I'm interdimensional. So while the Spot is trying to discover his powers, that's why Gwen Stacy actually comes back to Miles Morales' universe, like in the end of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and where the meme is where it's like she's looking through all of his drawings. That's how Gwen Stacy and Miles meet up again, is because Gwen was actually hired. So there's this big interdimensional Spider-Verse team, basically, that's like Avengers Endgame level numbers of people, and what they do is they're basically the time variance authority, but specifically niched down to only Spider-Man events. So they go to different universes and try to stable them and keep the canon events canon, which was super dope. The fact that they used in a movie the word canon, it caught me off guard, and I was like, dang. And all the different terminology that fans use that they used in this movie, the movie is so good. I'm still in shock. But basically, the Spider-Man Time Variance Authority try to make canon events, which is like Uncle Ben dying, to make Spider-Man have the with great power comes great responsibility thing in his head all the time. So I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. My camera stopped recording. I probably was recording for an extra 30 minutes and my camera wasn't actually recording. So if I repeat myself, I apologize. I'm gonna try to re-say everything that I said. But it was really cool to see all of the terminology that fans use and nerds use in this movie. It was very cool to see. But basically, the way that Miguel O'Hara explains it to Miles Morales is a canon event is something like Uncle Ben dying, where Spider-Man hears the words with great power comes great responsibility, something like that, where it happens to every Spider-Man and is one of the reasons why they become Spider-Man. That's what this Spider-Man Time Variance Authority does, and that's how they actually meet Gwen, is because this vulture from the Renaissance world, basically, he was like a paper mache vulture that looked like the Renaissance books. It was like a brown paper. That Renaissance vulture goes to Gwen's main world, and then Gwen is trying to defeat the vulture when Issa Rae's Spider-Woman and Oscar Isaac's Spider-Man 2099 show up, and that's how they meet, and that's how they recruit Spider-Gwen, is because they like how awesome she is, which, welcome to the club. But because Gwen gets recruited by the Time Variance Authority for Spider-Man, she's sent to Miles' Earth to watch the Spot because they're worried that he might become an anomaly, which might disrupt the timeline and all the things. So while Miles thinks that Gwen is there to hang out with him, she's actually there to watch Spot. But she gets distracted by hanging out with Miles, which makes the Spot have enough time to actually escape and go to Karan Sani's Spider-Man's universe. I'm gonna call him Spider-Man India because the way that you pronounce his name is ridiculous and extremely difficult for me. I'll put it right up here though. And then because the Spot goes to Karan Sani's Spider-Man's world, because there's actually a collider there, like in the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, where Kingpin is trying to use a collider to bring his wife and his daughter back. The Spot thinks that if he uses one of those colliders, he will be able to upgrade his power so that he's not just the villain of the week and he's actually Spider-Man Miles Morales' arch nemesis. So Ghost Spider, Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman, whatever you want to call her, opens a portal to go to Spider-Man India's Earth, and then Miles jumps through it, and then that's when we start seeing Daniel Kaluuya's Spider-Punk, Karan Sani's Spider-Man, Shamik Moore Miles Morales, Haley Steinfeld's Ghost Spider, Issa Rae's Spider-Woman, all together in the same world. And that's when all the Spider-Verse stuff starts happening, and the team is formed. So then the Spawn successfully activates the collider, which makes him have an upgrade moment, and he's like, you know what, Miles? I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna go back to the Earth, and I'm gonna kill your dad. So then Spot leaves, and then because the collider went off, India is just kind of exploded. And then one of the canon moments for Spider-Man India, Karan Sani Spider-Man, was his girlfriend's dad dying, because every Spider-Man has an emotional relationship to the chief of police from wherever they're at, because, you know, all Spider-Man do that. Spider-Man India's girlfriend's dad was supposed to die, but Miles Morales saves Spider-Man India's girlfriend's dad, which makes that canon event not happen, which makes the anomaly, which makes everything start to explode again, which is how we learn about the Spider-Man Time Variance Authority, so the STVA. And that's how we are introduced to the fact that it's a huge group. Miguel O'Hara brings the entire team back to the HQ. They call it the lobby, which was cool. And that's where we meet Andy Samberg's Ben Reilly. And we see the OG animated Spider-Man. We see him, and he's 2D, and he's really funny. There's a spider dinosaur and a spider cat. We see the spectacular Spider-Man animated series Spider-Man, and that voice actor, Josh Keaton, actually came back to voice the role, which was really cool. And that's when Jake Johnson's Spider-Man comes back into the movie, because apparently he's like one of the main dudes. He's like up there, because the people in charge are Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, and Issa Rae's Spider-Woman. And then Peter B. Parker, up there with those guys. But it was really cool to see all the dudes. And then while Miguel O'Hara is actually explaining to Miles that he screwed up a canon event, and that's when we learn about all this stuff and how if you disrupt a canon event, the world will start to explode, and that's what the STVA is for, to make sure that doesn't happen. We get a name drop of Earth 199999, which I'm pretty sure is the MCU's Earth, which means that Tom Holland and Doctor Strange, so Tom Holland Spider-Man and Benedict Cumberbatch Doctor Strange, are part of the Spider-Verse movies as well. And when they're explaining the canon events and used Uncle Ben dying as an example, they show Tobey Maguire crying over Uncle Ben on like a hologram in the background, and it's actually live action him, so it's not like they animated him, which means that there are different universes. It's not just all animated like what we see in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where they go into an animated world and are animated there for a bit. And we see Andrew Garfield crying over Gwen Stacy, which was really cool. So basically what this means is it's totally plausible that Tom Holland Spider-Man, Benedict Cumberbatch Doctor Strange, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, Tom Hardy Venom, and a lot of other Spider-Man characters could totally be in the final Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse movie, which would be so dope. And then that's when Miguel O'Hara explains that cop thing that I was talking about, where the chief of the police of wherever the Spider-Man is based always has to die. And that's when Miles Morales connects the dots that his dad is actually getting promoted to the chief of police, which means that he's about to lose his dad. So he lost his uncle Aaron, which was his uncle Ben, and now he's gonna lose his dad as the chief of police. So he's only gonna have his mom left. And because of that, Miles gets super upset, and there's this super dope chase scene because of it. There's this absolutely freaking amazing chase scene. This chase scene is ridiculous. It shows probably like 400 to 500 different Spider-Man variants that it was so cool. There was a cowboy one, like I said, dinosaur, and there was a cat one. This is when we see the very first animated version of Spider-Man. There was a robot one. There was a Spider-Man with 8 arms. There was Arachnite. And this chase scene is done absolutely beautiful. This is when we see that Miles Morales is special and better than all the other Spider-Man, because he's the main character in the movies. And this is when we learn that Miles Morales is an anomaly himself, which was really cool because we didn't know that before. So basically what it is, you know how in the first movie he gets bitten by a spider that has 42 on the back. That spider was from Earth 42, which is not Miles Morales' Earth, which means that Miles Morales got bitten by a spider not from his Earth, which makes him an anomaly, which is why Miguel O'Hara is so bothered by Miles Morales. And that's why Miles Morales isn't part of the STVA, even though he's probably one of the most powerful Spider-Man out there. And then this is the scene where we get to see Miles Morales' new powers, and because he's honed them over the year of him being Spider-Man. And we see that he's really learned how to use his Venom lightning powers and his invisibility and all the things. And then he actually escapes the huge mob in like a super cool way, and then starts running down in the city of Nueva York, which is Spider-Man 2099's version of New York. And then there's this really funny moment where Jake Johnson's Spider-Man has had a kid in between the first movie and this movie. So Spider-Man's trying to give Miles Morales his kid as like a stress puppy, like a emotional support baby, basically, and it's really flipping funny. But eventually Miles Morales uses one of the technology things that Spider-Man 2099 made to get teleported back to what he thinks is his Earth. And then this is what actually, the movie ends in a cliffhanger, which was super dope, but also super frustrating, because everybody in the theater was freaking out about how it ended in a cliffhanger, like how in the theater for Infinity War, if you saw that movie in theaters and you remember, because like my theater was going absolutely insane, when the credits rolled and Thanos was just sitting, chilling at his farm. Everyone was so mad, and it was very similar. There was a person behind me that literally went, bro, as loud as possible. It was really funny. And Donald Glover makes a live action appearance as Prowler, which means that Donald Glover could very possibly be the live action Prowler for the MCU, which was really cool. And it was live action Donald Glover next to animated Miles Morales, which was really, really, really cool. And also, J.K. Simmons shows up as J. Jonah Jameson, which was really cool to see because J.K. Simmons is definitely goated as JJJ. He's the best, and I'm so glad that they're not trying to recast him. So the reason it ends in a cliffhanger is because Miles Morales goes to Earth 42 due to the fact that the machine that he used to teleport away from 2099 Spider-Man's Earth is based off of your genetic code, and the genetic code in Miles is the spider from Earth 42 and not his Earth. So he gets transported to Earth 42. And Earth 42 is like this huge, basically Gotham City version of New York, and it's really cool. But that's why it ends in a cliffhanger, because Miles Morales gets stuck there. And Andy Samberg, so funny. There's something Andy Samberg does that's just so freaking funny. And I don't want to say it because I want you to go see the movie, even though I'm spoiling all of the really cool parts. But I'm not spoiling the really, really cool parts. There's that bit in the chase scene where it's the meme where they're all pointing at each other, which is really funny. All of the different references that the producers and directors and writers made to things the fans have done and all of that stuff is so good and so perfect. I'm so happy with the way that they did all of this. But by the end of the movie, Gwen Stacy has decided that she doesn't like Miguel O'Hara and the way that he does stuff anymore. So Spider-Gwen actually makes a team of her own STVA that has Spider-Punk and Spider-Man India and Peter B. Parker Spider-Man, so Jake Johnson Spider-Man. And it has, of course, Spider-Gwen, but also Spider-Ham, and it has Spider-Man Noir, and it has Penny Parker. And then Miguel O'Hara has his own team, that's Spider-Woman, Ben Reilly, and Miguel O'Hara. This movie is so incredibly good. It's probably one of the best animated movies ever, and it's probably like top 3 or top 5 Marvel projects since Avengers Endgame. Up there with like No Way Home, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Morbius. But I absolutely loved this movie, and you guys need to go see it. If you haven't seen it already, if you have the time, it's summer right now, so you should probably, definitely, most likely 100% go see this movie. It's a 10 out of 10. It's absolutely amazing. I love this movie with every fiber of my being. Go watch this movie right now. And by right now, I mean like whenever you can afford it and have the time and you can go with your family and all that good stuff.